That's right, I'm back, baby. Welcome, friends, one and all, to yet another build. I appreciate you stopping by and spending time with me, as always. This time, I made a box, and then it has some feet, and I didn't know let's just see the thing. Alright, friends, so here's the deal. A few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to spend some time at Lore Woodworking with some friends of mine, Rob and Larissa, who are fantastic craftspeople and designers in their own right, and we just decided to get together over Christmas break, have some fun, build a thing. And we had 3 days, and basically what happened was I went in with no plan, because that's how I roll, and ended up making a box in one day, and then thought about how I could make the box more interesting, and just kind of kept forcing myself to come back to it and reiterate it, and ended up with a box that is more sculptural than functional. I mean, it functions, it has anyway. Yeah, I think it's an interesting object, so we're going to talk about how I made that, why I made that, and it's time to get busy. So I started by choosing some lumber and ultimately just settled on some plain wood for the box itself and went with more decorative woods for the top. By the way, when you are resawing, make sure that you have a sharp blade. It just makes life easier. Don't be lazy like yours truly sometimes is. It's not that complicated. Just change the blade. Ah, the miter. Such a lovely, simple joint. Oh, there are a myriad of ways to cut grooves in the bottom of your box. I just prefer to do it on the table saw, and I don't have a flat tooth blade because nobody's going to see an enclosed groove. Then it was time to mill up the board for the bottom of the box, which is made out of this curly maple that I found lying around their shop. It just had a beautiful grain and some beautiful discoloration in the sapwood and the live edge that I wanted to really incorporate into the design. Again, those rabbets are cut with a normal saw blade on the table saw because nobody's going to see it if it's enclosed in a groove. If you've never used blue tape to glue up a miter, boy howdy, you gotta get on that train, friends. It's just so much easier than trying to use cross-directional clamps. when it came time to install the hinges, I decided I wanted to do it by hand, mostly for my own sake. It had been a little while since I had installed hinges by hand, and it was something I always really enjoyed doing early on in my woodworking career. So I decided now is the time. It doesn't take much more than making sure your chisels are sharp and having good layout tools like a good slicing gauge or a good marking gauge, and then just taking your time and working accurately to your knife lines. Now at this point I had a box and I didn't have any further plans. It was just a cube. It was just a rectangle. It wasn't interesting to me. So the next morning I came in and I tinkered around for a little while, just playing with different ideas and looking at the box and figuring out where it was going. And eventually I decided that I was going to make feet for it. Now, figuring out the joinery for the legs was actually a fairly lengthy process. They're all compound miter joints, so it was all cut and recut and try the angle and see what it looks like. And then in the end, I decided just to size the joints or seal the end grain and glue it up like a normal joint, because it is just a box and it doesn't need to be bomb-proof. Now there's no real way to clamp these pieces together, so what I ended up doing was something called a rub joint, which is an underrated joint and plenty strong for an application like this. There was a lot of hand shaping on these pieces. I spent the better part of a full day just shaping these pieces with the Dremel and with the rasps by hand, but I'm really happy with the way they turned out. There's something very spidery, spindly about these. There's something very fleshy about them that I really like, and yet they have these very strong angles that are unrealistic and caricatures, but I enjoy the way they turned out. The front legs are glued on simply with yellow glue and a dab of CA glue to keep them in place while the yellow glue cures, and the back legs are glued on using a dowel joint. I did the final glue up of the legs on the jointer to ensure that I was working on a flat surface. So friends, there it is, a box that It has some motion. I think it's a really interesting form at this point, more than just a rectangle. While I'm happy with the craftsmanship of the box as it was, I'm really happy that I went down that extra road and just explored this idea, because it's something I've had bubbling in the back of my brain for a while, but I never had a chance to really have the time to explore. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out. A big thank you to Rob and Larissa for having me out. It was a blast to go hang with them for 3 days, and they pitied me and all of the dumb jokes that come out of my mouth and politely laughed at everything I said. If you're not following them over on Instagram, make sure you pop over and check them out. I will leave a link down below. And friends, again, thank you for joining me for another build. I appreciate your time as always, and until the next time I see you, be good, make good decisions. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Peace. What's up, America?